before we get into who you are today, I'm just interested to know, just as a little kind of amuse-bouche for perhaps a longer conversation later, what was the perception you were really keen to leave behind? Where did you think people got it wrong?
I don't think people got it wrong. I just think that now they need to catch up to who I am now. I feel like, in this process, what you're hearing is kind of an undiluted version of my creative process now. Like I think before, and I love working with co-writers, and I think it's really fun. But this time around, I was like, I think the kind of projects that I want to make only works when, there's no other co-writers, and when it's kind of like, just me honing in on the craft and really, like really putting it on me, putting the writing part, the songwriting part on me, like putting in that work every day of like expanding my references and like writing lyrics and ideas down every day. And, I made this album with Gincho, who to me is like, has such a fresh perspective on pop music. I knew I wanted to make it with a producer that was like that. And so I reached out to him and immediately was like, oh, he gets me. And he, like the things that he liked the most from me, like I just did this remix of a Stromae song where it was just like, really quick. It was just like me on the mic. Like I freestyled it, whatever, edited it. And then we put it out and he was like, that's my favorite thing I feel like you've ever done. It really sounds like the person I'm having a conversation with. And I was like, oh, that's somebody that's not really trying to play it safe and getting all the like hired, guns and the safety net of, other co-writers. Like he wants this to be kind of like raw and just me, and like that's what he's excited by. And then he would like send me beats and stuff, and a lot of the stuff that I was gravitating towards was stuff he'd worked on with Jasper Harris. And so then it was really just the three of us, like kind of like making this music, and they made me grow so much as an artist and as a writer, and constantly kind of challenged me and, put me onto new things and new references.
I thought it was so funny when I heard I Love It. I was like, yeah. There's only a small group of artists around right now that I feel can move in pop music in a very free, very unrestricted, very creative way, and it still feels like it's pushing pop forward. Obviously, we know Rosalia is one of them, so you're with Gincho. That's perfect. Obviously, we know Charlie XCX is one of them. Then everyone's like, oh, similarities. I'm like, you don't understand the history of this. Charlie XCX is the reason that I met Camila in the first place. She's the one who said, Camila is the real she's a weirdo. She's an incredible top line writer. She's into full creative.
I think that's like a really important part too, because I think that I do feel like I'm a weirdo, and that's the music that I love, and that's the music that I feel the most proud of making. And I think I think a lot of times it comes to like finding people that are weirdos too. And, Jasper's a weirdo, Gincho's a weirdo. And I think the three of us were able to just like keep it in this bubble of like, we don't give a f***, we're just going to do what we think is fire.
That's what it is. That's the beautiful thing. It's the I don't give a f*** element of it that, look, we all know that when you come out and you're making music, there's a lot of people with the best of intentions that want great things for you. And then therefore you find yourself making cool shit. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. It's all part of the experimentation of life. But what I'm hearing right now in this music and what blew me away, and the reason why I tried to get hold of you, was because I just heard this very free sounding, very weird, very progressive pop star coming to the surface that I think people that you just mentioned, I've mentioned, and others have known as always there.
And you can always, I wish you would have cold called me, because I knew that you were getting sent the music, and I was like, I know Zane will will this. So
the song is called I Love It. We're catching up with Camila right here. It's really good to see you again. It's been a long time since we caught up. I know that it takes time, and you've taken your time, and it sounds totally worth it. We've got to talk a little bit about who's on this record. On a scale of who you think anyone thinks they can get on something, there is a hierarchy here, right? There's a hierarchy of who shows up. I mean, literally shows up.
He's a Pikachu, for sure.
Have you seen The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
I have.
So you know that scene where Sean Penn's waiting for the snow leopard? And he's like, be very still, because if you make a sudden move, that's
the best analogy that I've heard for Playboi Carti.
That's Playboi Carti, right?
I know. I mean, and that's why he's so where he is, because he's so meticulous and so choosy, and he's really created this world because this album is so I was like really falling in love with synths and synth textures, and also giving myself the freedom to, I love this song too because I feel like I gave myself the freedom from a songwriter perspective to be like, it doesn't, I don't know, I was listening to a lot of like like old like rap, and I really was like, oh, I haven't really played around with like repetition like this before, and a lot of my favorite like 2000s hip hop songs are like call and response or repetition. And I think I kind of put pressure on myself before to be like, in order for me to be like a songwriter, songwriter, it has to, really be like all these lyrics and
The melodic hook that comes at you and the whole thing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and the story and the narrative and this, because I grew up on that too, but giving myself the freedom to be like, no, this is just another paintbrush.
Sometimes you just want to put the headphones on and listen to a Millie.
And I listened to so much rap and so much hip hop, and learned so much from that genre of music, like throughout this album. So yeah, a Millie is like, I listened to a Millie probably like, I'm not even just saying this, like so many times.
That's what I heard when I heard the song. I mean, yeah, of course I heard modern pop production in it, and I love that you were stepping into that room and staking your claim in that room. But I just heard, I love it, a milli, a milli, a milli. It was just that beautiful repetition of something that you just kind of like, all right, well, that's now going to be the way that I move today.
Speaking of when you were talking about like who is the hardest to get or whatever, I feel like we just like really went for it.
How did you even get Carti?
I DM'd him. First of all, closed mouths don't get fed, and a lot of people are like,
Ooh.
don't even, he's like, he's mysterious and whatever, and I was just like, I'm just gonna DM him.
This is such a genuine, thoughtful, tentative.
It was very genuine, and then we were, we talked about Miami because he spends a lot of time in Miami and Atlanta, and yeah, I think we just like started talking, and I think he really like loved kind of like the new visual world that I was leaning into, and I think that there's a lot of similarities, and we actually like, I feel like we are more similar than I feel like what you would think on the outside. Like when he came into the studio to, I was just like, hey, like come by, let's hang out, let me play you some music, and I played him this song because I think like we were like, me and Pablo and Jasper were like, he would just be so sick on this song, and we genuinely thought he would love the song, and he did. And we have similar ways of working, and like a lot of like, for me, my writing process is just kind of like freestyling, and then we kind of like work from that. But yeah, he just like went in the booth, and we were just like so excited.
I just love that you get to spend time in the room with, like, I think if you asked somebody cold who was a fan of Carti or Opium or any of the things that he's worked on, you would imagine that if you were lucky, you'd get a file. You'd get something on the email or on a WeTransfer, and you'd be like, oh, this is it. Whatever it is, this is it. We ain't going to get it again. This is it. And, he did it. Thank goodness he did it. Let's see if it works, and we figure it out from there. The idea that he actually came in and actually hung out with you guys and had a good time with you guys and got into the whole spirit of it, it's just very rewarding to hear that.
And it was so, to me, that's been one of the most like fulfilling and exciting and like world opening parts of the album is like just like really getting to be like in community with other artists and like talk about and dance to this song in the studio with him. Like that's my favorite part, like I'm so excited for people to hear, because I also love how like nuts his fan base is. And like since we started kind of hanging out, like his fans go so hard for him, and I love that. So I love that people are going to experience this, but my favorite part is like those memories that I have of like, I don't know, just like, meeting new people and making new friends, and like, yeah.
Well, you've done the other thing.
Yeah.
Like anyone else in the music business who's come up and had some success, you've tried the forced friendship.
I think it's like, I wouldn't even say forced friendship, but I think there's a lot of, and I really have always tried for it not to be this way, but I think in pop, there's a lot of transactional stuff.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, like transactional features, and it's just like it's way better when it comes from like, hey, like I've been like really music, and what's up, and let's hang out and let's talk, and if a song comes out great, like I think like that always is, I feel like, the best energy. And I think that's been a big part of this whole album process, just like curiosity.
I mean,
I've been in this industry for, this is like 11th year.
Wow.
So it's actually pretty easy to get bored and to be like, well, I've seen that.
Like the whole world is surprised when a pop star or a rock star or any kind of superstar changes the color of their hair. Like it's been happening for 80 years. Like,
And we love it. We love that.
David Bowie did it every song. I can understand.
David Bowie was the GOAT.
Character development is part of the whole thing.
It's part of the whole thing.
I mean, that's what Carti is. That's why people buy into it, is because it's authentic, yes, but he's also very aware that how he shows up each time is going to change people's perception of his identity, and identity shift is important.
That was the one thing I have done on this album that I don't feel like, I feel like I was getting to before, but for me, I've always been just like a song-based artist. Like it's always been more, you know how like, I heard Charlie say the other day, you know, it's like artistry is more important than songs. I was like always the opposite mentality. Like I was always like, everything is about the song. Like, you know, that was everything for me. It was just isolated from the name or who did it or whatever. It was just about how does this, you know, 4-minute, whatever, 3-minute piece of music sound. And I think in this album, and I think it's because I started diving deeper into like bodies of work and artists, I was like, I love the way like Lana or Carti or like they just like create a whole world, and it makes the music so much richer. So I think I'd attempted to do that before, but never got the full gist of it. And I learned so much from Pablo and Jasper.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm really glad you're here. I know that 11 years in this business is a long time for anybody, especially when you start at a young age and you've been through what you've been through. To be in a situation where you're taking risks like this and making pop music that sounds like this, man, we don't take it for granted. Thank you, Camila. It's great to see you.
Bye, brother. Call me anytime.